Half past, so we'll try and get back.
Thanks for inviting me to talk about it. So today I'm just going to talk maybe more focused on software and digital technology teaching and learning for undergraduate studies. So some of you may already know that we have recently changed our undergraduate program from Bachelor of Environments to Bachelor of Design. So we're essentially realigning ourselves closer towards the Victoria College of Arts and Engineering faculty. There's 12 majors in the actual program itself, and so today I'm just going to talk about one of the a new subject that we structured for first year semester 1 teaching, which cut across essentially 5 majors as a kind of case study. What this actually provides us is actually quite an interesting opportunity for us to review the digital content of our undergraduate study, and in order to maximize the employability of our students, we started to develop content with kind of more digital content and essentially started to open up more issues that we already covered. So there's a few kind of issues that maybe, so towards the end of the presentations, we will talk a little bit, I will show a kind of a simple survey that we've done through a small survey we conducted with my students, which has undertaken some of my subject in the last few years and how they cope with learning technology and design. So over the next few slides, I'm just going to outline some of the, I guess, issues that we uncovered during when we were structuring the new content with e-learning. It's by no way kind of perfect. I don't think it's any way the exemplar, but I think it would be perhaps kind of interesting to start to probe bring forth some kind of problems, strategies, or issues that we face around teaching and learning in software and digital technology. So a few issues that we kind of encountered, I think some of them has already been discussed earlier. One of them is how much ready-made content do we use versus bespoke learning content. The second one is what's the purpose of e-learning in software and technology teaching, given that there's already so much content out there already. We even have views from some academics from our university that think that universities shouldn't teach software at all, just to be provocative. So e-learning is sometimes being seen as an easy fix for students to skill up in their own time, especially when we can't find sufficient sessional staff to teach the content. So the question is, how much software content do we teach, and do we only teach kind of high-level design workflow and applications? And the last question is, how do we cope with emerging technologies so students can skill up for the industry? With new kind of developments in technologies, the rise of VR and AR technologies, how do we cope with teaching emerging technologies and software? So, the previous presentation already talked about it. It is actually an overwhelming amount of information. So the last time I looked, there was about 7 hours of tutorials alone just on random 3D modeling. Adobe Photoshop is 11 hours, 12 hours for learning basic Revit. So that's a huge amount of information and really kind of overwhelming for students to chuck them into an environment like this. On the flip side, we also have very bespoke, tailored e-learning content. These are all custom tutorials that colleagues of mine of ours developed. Stanislav Budowski has developed this, where each of these content are 15 minutes packages of Grasshopper and parametric plugin software, and this overall 68 videos being developed over the last 3 years, which also amounts to a huge amount of information. So I think if you calculate it, it will be close to about 6 hours, about 2 days of learning in total. So actually, but there's also a downside that's going to be highlighted in the last presentation. There's an incredible amount of resources, incredibly intensive, and software plugins keep updating themselves. So we'll find that a lot of this, virtually 1/3 of this is starting to go out of date as soon as we publish within a year. And on average, we kind of figure that it's roughly about 15 minutes of videos take about 2 hours to produce, 2 to 3 hours to produce. I'm not sure whether they share your experience.
How much video takes 2 hours?
15 minutes. Yeah, it's about typically one of this chunk takes about 2 to 3 hours. So essentially, times it by 8 or 10-fold. And then you have the updated every year or two. So a design process is a constant negotiation of puzzle and problem solving, puzzle making and problem solving, which allow new problems and issues to surface and get those students to look at different opportunities within a design problem. The way we started to see tools, at least software and digital technology as tools, is to enable that process, the designing process. And these tools allow students to test ideas, to analyze ideas, make physical prototypes, modeling, simulations, and narrow down to kind of very specific solutions. The kind of iterative exercise allows design to push boundaries on what is actually possible. So I run, this is second year students' work that run for about 4 years, using materials and digital technologies as probes for design process. It kind of give us kind of a few interesting outcome. So students asked to design a second skin in this project to address their personal space within the public realm. The third issue that we found is that we have to deal with new emerging technologies. On average, we have typically about 3 to 5 new software per year added to our computer labs. And only the last 2 years alone, I had to develop, or at least learn myself, 2 new software, and it's tiny fractions. Some colleagues of mine just sent me another email with about another 10 new software to learn for parametric design in the next 5 years. So next another 10 of them that I don't know about. So essentially, we're talking about kind of exponential amount of data and information that we had to teach or process or somehow, or not teach at all. And this year we also have a new kind of VR fleet that's being added to our teaching capacity, which frankly for the last 6 months, the 6 months of the year, it's basically sitting there doing nothing apart from a few researchers using it for research, because we have no means of delivering to undergraduate studies yet, which we will in the next year. We're looking at that at the moment. So this is kind of a map of skill sets that I sometimes use in my lecture. To talk about kind of ecology of skill sets that students need to understand as they move through year 1, year 2, and year 3. And by the time, the thinking is that by the time we hit year 3, most students will be starting to interface with digital fabrication, AR, VR technology. But the intensity of the learning curve are just almost overwhelming. And so the fact is that the skill set that architecture students have to learn is incredibly large and really broad in terms of the spectrum. So I want to look at kind of a small case study. So this is a subject called Foundation of Design Representation. So it's the first year 1 core subject delivered across 5 majors. Architecture being the dominant kind of major in there. We have 430 students. We start out with 460 students, so we have 430 finishing the subject. The subject is divided with 4 hours content per week, split into 2 hours studios, 2 hour workshop. And we have a bunch of e-learning components that supplement on LMS Blackboard. So this is essentially our, if you like, first year students / communication subjects roll into one. So that's the basic core structure of it. The 10% at the top, this quiz, is really our sneaky way to get students to come to our lecture. Basically, it means that at least out of the 10 lectures, they have to come to 5 of them to get the quiz mark there, but to be honest, they're so small. So we get them to do, first part of this, the first 2 modules are essentially hand drawing. Up until this point, essentially, is all digital drawings and modeling. So I'll focus on module 2, flatness and projections, and module 3, pattern and surface, because in the sense that has the most amount of e-learning content. At the end of it, we also ask students to prepare a portfolio. So they're all designed to be 3 to 4 weeks exercise only, and with kind of a fairly rigorous amount of framework around it. Hopefully you agree with me. So after the ecology, we pick up on what is essential as a basic, as a foundation for first year architecture students, in terms of kind of giving them the understanding of a dominant workflow in design. from communications to information, managing information and data, through to outputting them through making process, digital printing, and then feeding them back into their portfolio. So the digital content, e-learning content, there's three predominant types, although you may not consider this as e-learning. The first is maybe two types. The first one is kind of an instructable step-by-step guide. So they're literally kind of digestible 6, 7, 8 pages of step 1, do this. So we're teaching students how to draw axonometric, who has no idea what axonometric even look like in week 4. The second is a set of e-learning. We use a mixture. The strange thing is that we never use Linda. I've always avoided Linda because of the, apology in advance, because of the very strong American accent. Maybe you want to cut that out from filming. But we actually do find that Linda is actually incredibly dragged out. Even on a very simple topic, it's 15 minutes, which you could actually find very much the equivalent of the same topic in 2 minutes. So you either edit it down yourself or you find a way to. So we tend generally kind of try to customize to a certain extent, but most of them are typically ready-made. And then we introduced kind of slightly old-fashioned way of lab teaching. And we thought it's actually an interesting idea, and I'd like to kind of hear your view about it later on. So the first modules that we taught them is, so this module is all about how to do axonometric projections, hand drawings through to using Illustrator to color up. So we gave the students 2 axonometric projections, elevation of a Mario world, and we asked them using a step-by-step guide going through the whole process. So this is almost like an instructable exercise of how to make a sailboat or something like that, or how to make it inflatable, instructable. So essentially taking that sort of format and making that digestible for students. Which we then ask students to replicate them and use their creativity to kind of aid that process. So in a sense, we gave them a set of tool sets, we gave them a set of framework, a scaffold, and they kind of deal with the kind of creative aspect of it with the guidance from the tutors. So this shows basically the starting process of the 2 elevations that was from the Mario screen grab and how they develop kind of in between spaces. Some of this is probably one of the more, I guess, exuberant one. The third modules, which is on essentially looking at paneling tool in Rhino 3D. We want them to start to develop a workflow from, I guess, digital modeling, and that's kind of modeling not just a kind of representational process, but modeling as kind of a generative process. To use the tool set as a way to generate a series of patterns, looking at differentiation of pattern. And then at some point, in the third week, started to make them into paper models with precisions. So they went through a process of, so we gave them a piece of landscape. It's actually a fragment of a landscape of Tasmania, a topography of Tasmania. So the whole studio has much larger landscape which then get collected together. From that, the students then use as a form of a platform to interpret and sort of to augment the landscape into something else. So we run a series of 2 hours sessions with the students. Because we have 430 students, our lab only takes, the biggest lab only takes 32, which means that if we do that, we're going to be teaching for 2 days on Rhino, which will kill us. So we thought we're going to try this. We're going to run 120 students mass tutorials with very precise content on what they need to do, the basic skill set they need to do, with about 6 tutors around. Those are the tutors that you see, which should essentially run around like a mad person trying to resolve problems. So you still get the typical 1 to 20 sessions. It just means I run 4 sessions rather than, I don't know, 28 studios usually, which I don't even know how to count it. So all the content are pre-prepared. There's a series of e-learnings also supplemented, but they essentially learned firsthand how to use the software directly as a workflow to their own design tool. What we found is interesting here is that essentially if they sit to 2 hours of this workshop session, it's equivalent to 8 hours of online learning. So if I take the content of 8 hours, I could basically teach them in 2 hours. Now the absorption rate we found is a lot higher in terms of retention rate, because suddenly if they have a problem, they raise their hand, and essentially there's always immediate help. If they can't catch up, then they stay behind and they make sure they catch up. We also have a suite of e-learning fleets, essentially on everything from how to use issues to Wix to Rhino modeling to 3D paneling, which is probably the hardest part they have to deal with. I also deliberately make the name really, really long so they actually remember it. If they don't remember it, at least they really, really long name module. So each one of them essentially has all these kind of pre-made as supplementary. So we only see the kind of ready-made modules, e-learning modules is kind of supplementary to the learning process. If there are problems, they will go back. It's really useful. We find that because we have 28 studios, essentially 15 tutors, it's very difficult to find all 15 tutors with the same amount of level skill sets. Some of them will know Rhino, some of them may not actually know how to use paneling too. So this becomes really easy for them to essentially divert the students' attentions to that before they come back for more kind of design input. And obviously the workshop complements that process as well. I'm just going to end up showing you work now from the process. So these are actually workflow coming out from the students' portfolio pages, which collected at the end of the modules where they went through the different exercise of the paneling exercise, resulting in kind of testing of small prototypes. These are essentially 4 weeks package, 3 to 4 weeks package, resulting in kind of paper models, cartridge paper models is being made out in 500 by 500. So this is towards the end of the subject. The students then collate all the works together as online portfolio. So during the semesters, they already start to develop their modules, and the portfolio is essentially part of it. The key part, the critical part, is a hurdle requirement. If I can maybe show you, I can jump out and show you the actual portfolio online. So these are essentially the modules that was being developed. So this is a typical student's portfolio. I would say she's probably, I'm not going to show you the worst one, so I'm obviously going to show you the higher to mid end. So what we found is that we don't know, because we only have 12 weeks, we want students to understand graphic layout at the same time as understanding representations. So we found this platform really useful because there's only so many ways you can align the text, and it forces you to align the text so you don't have text flying everywhere. I mean, look, I'm not a graphic designer, but all I'm expecting the students is to have very simple, basic graphic layout which looks sensible. And we thought this platform is actually a reasonable kind of platform to use. Essentially, then students collect this as part of their final portfolios as an outcome. Just go back to my lectures. So, as I say, these are collected, and on the end, there's a complementary aspect of it where we want them to also understand portfolio is one aspect of the work. Exhibitions is also a way of curating their own work. So they also have the project curated in an exhibition. What I want to share with you is perhaps this is a survey that I've done since 2015, so over the last 2-3 years now. The sample is still growing. The survey has been sent out to about 100 students so far, at various levels, second year and some master students. We have about a 35 response at the moment, so the response rate are about a third. It's not huge. What is interesting here is that on the left-hand side, we ask the students how technology affects the design process. And as the students kind of answer more than one, can choose more than one answer. So 97% of them stated that it opens up design opportunity and increases the sophistication of the project. 59% said it expedites the process. 6% say that it slowed down their design process, it restricted their creativity. And 50% provided alternative response. And one of the alternative response, if I may just share with you, it says, I think it's a she. It's all anonymous, so I'm not really sure whether it's a he or she. So the participants basically say, it takes time to grasp the way how technology works. Sometimes it's hard to come up with a coherent way of designing through hand and through software. The balancing between the two can be time-consuming. However, this balancing can be both beneficial and hindering. Beneficial, make a more precise design. Hindering, the translation between the two worlds can be difficult. So I think this is interesting because it kind of highlighted the typical struggle the student has in learning and integrating technology in the design teaching. It also kind of point out that perhaps it ought to be a much more seamless workflow between hand and technology-aided design process. So on the right-hand side is another survey within the same set. Another question that look at learning new technology during design studios. Bearing in mind that all respondents all attended the same amount of period, 12 weeks. So 62% say that while it was time-consuming, it was also manageable. 29% say that it makes the workflow easy. But what is also surprising is that no one has said it's too difficult and unmanageable. 3 participants provide some alternative responses. They suggest that the design period of 12 weeks should be extended. I think this suggests that the pickup period for new technology is longer at the start of the design process, leaving students with less time towards the end to complete the project to their satisfaction. So I don't know whether this is useful or not, but I think it's something to give us a very simple kind of snapshot of, from the students' point of view, how they cope with technologies and learning technologies, especially software, which is extremely demanding in their process. So I'm going to just up to you.
Yeah, no, if we can have five minutes of question time for Paul, and then we'll break up. So, yep, over to questions.
No questions.
I've got a question. When you introduce the course, you said it's for year 1?
The case study is year 1.
Yeah. And in that course, you covered like 5 or 6?
I know, it's insane, yes.
And they are assumed not to know anything?
Yes.
How do you do that?
No idea. We just took a potluck and no. It's I think the e-learning are really important because it gives. Okay, the first instructable set is really important because it sets kind of a tone of this is the expected outcome. If you follow this step by step, you get there. No matter how creative, non-creative you are, if you follow the step, you will at least have some sort of exometric at the end of the day, which boosts the confidence. And then we have those that just went off, which into stratosphere. And of course, you've got some that's just kind of go, I just finish what I do, and like I said, I pass. The 4 modules are all designed in such a way they test different. We call them the 4 way of seeing, but to me, it's more like 4 way of torturing the students because it really tests them. I even myself, I found some of the tutors difficult to cope with the 4 process because one of them required to have analytical drawings. The last one, which I didn't talk about, actually involved reading a page of Calvino's Invincible City and translate that into an abstract stage design. It's like, so it kind of required them to have both sides of the brain working. Yeah, so I have no idea how we do it, but somehow it's there. So, but I think the modules are critical for us to set the pace of it because I think without those e-learning scaffold, it will just be a mess. Because essentially there won't be any. I think we also understand the lack of time constraining students one-to-one contact. So those essentially become the main point of engagement. Yeah.
So what's the learning outcome of the course overall? What is it that we're trying
We want the students to understand design as a workflow in a very simple way. And whether it's hand drawings or whatever, we essentially tell them that what they're looking at is not just one outcome, but essentially a process.
So would it matter if a student was good with one kind of software but just had absolutely no grasp on the other, or something
No, it
like
doesn't
that?
matter, but which is why those marks are so even. I mean, it's one of the big criticisms on the subject is that the marks are so evenly spread
Yeah.
that at the end, there is very few people that went up into the H1 because unless, I mean, it really shows that if you have talent, you go up there because then you cope with every single levels of it. But we found that, and I think this is also my own criticism as well, that all the marks seems to be lumped in the middle. A lot of students are very good at everything, but not perfect or super good at something.
So is like with the final portfolio thing,
Yeah.
could it not be done in a way where like that had heavy sort of marks, but at one point the student makes a choice of what skill sets they will use to develop the portfolio?
Yeah, they could have. I mean, there is an opportunity for them to add more content to it, but I know you're suggesting that you could skew it towards their own,
Yeah.
their strength, so to speak.
Yeah.
But in a way, I think it's not a bad thing for them to, at year one, semester one, to face what they're not good at and work on it, I guess.
Thank you so much for this. You were mentioning e-learning step by step, and then there was something ready-made tutorial. Could you explain a little bit about that?
Okay, so the step-by-steps, maybe I'll go back, sorry.
Well, maybe step by step is kind of easy to understand, but
Yeah.
what is the ready-made
The
tutorial?
ready-made are essentially things like Linda. Yeah.
But your own version.
But I spend my time actually going around YouTube, and we also, there's another platforms which I have gathered kind of over the past few years, a set of tutorials that I found it useful for students. So yeah, I'm not that organized, but essentially it's a kind of accumulations of 2 or 3 years of content which you then kind of just pick and choose. A bit like the playlist.
Curation is
yeah, you just
important
curate it.
because students you can't let it go find stuff because they'll tell you it's taking 4 hours to find a decent 5-minute video. But
Yeah.
like you said, some
Yeah.
things can be too long as well.
Yes, I found almost all Linda's tutorials just way too long and not necessary. And in fact, you can find very much equivalent on YouTube, which talk about the same thing in 2 minutes, and you got it. I think my students' attention span are really short, so you're gonna have to play with that.
Question from Sophie, and then another, and then we'll break up. Yep.
Amazing work, and I really just had a Wix question. It's really impressive. So students are submitting into the portfolio as the semester goes? Like
Yes,
module
yes.
1, so it just builds...
Yeah.
Okay, and then...
So the Wix is not the final assessment platform. So in order to log the time, I
Yes.
need to get them to submit it on Blackboard.
Okay, that was my question. Yeah.
But I just want them to use the Wix because at some point they're going to go out and it's essentially another platform, so they must well learn how to use any sort of software to use it.
This question up the back.
Kind of an uber technical question. How do you deal with the issue of students in your tutorials all having the same iteration of software? Are you running a thin client or something? Like, how do you make sure that they've got the right Rhino
Oh, I see.
iteration or
Yes,
something like that?
that's a lot of fun. That's when we sorted out during workshop.
Right.
Yeah, we spend the workshop time making sure that, because essentially they would have done the workshop before they step into the tutorial.
Right.
So essentially we know that if they haven't got it right, they will already know where they haven't got it right in terms of iteration of software. There's nothing more annoying than teaching students how to use Rhino on Mac. And the worst thing is that 70% or 80% of all our tutors only use it on PC. So occasionally we'll have this one question that fires on Mac, and we'll all look at each other because we'll all have to go something like this, you know, so, and it was really awkward. But, you know, I think that's where the teaching, I think the students find it really useful that we have this one-to-one, 2-hour workshop session that just essentially let them kind of fire any sort of question they have or problem they have with software, which you can go online and search on a forum. Sure, of course you can, but it's going to take you time.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
thank you very much, Paul.